Martin Crowe, our guest this morning after the launch of his book Raw last night. Martin, can we get to the book and get to some cricket? I want to start, oddly enough, at the end. I want to read out the last 24 words of your book. Here we go. Cricket gave me the tools, the lessons and the experience. But after 50 years, it won't anymore. Goodbye, cricket. Thanks for the memories. End of book. So do we take it from that you are completely done with cricket now, forever, in every form?
You know, right now I have to walk away from the game. Even watching us getting bowled for 68 at Lords had an effect on me, and I just can't turn it off. It's an addiction. I'm like an alcoholic. I mean, it's been in my blood, since I could walk, since I lifted a bat at the age of 5, and as much as I would love to still, enjoy turning the telly on to watch Ross bat or New Zealand playing a test match, I actually can't. I can't do it. It's not healthy for me, not now.
Don't you miss it? The cricket?
Well, I still look at Cricinfo, or I'm up in 2:00 in the morning watching some of the ICC stuff, but I'm not engaging in it, and I'm trying to turn my mind off from my analytical side, which is my natural sort of default to go to. But I can't even get into coaching. I don't want to commentate anymore. I don't really want to write about it. And so I've just drawn the line in the sand, and I've said what I've said in the book. This is it. Goodbye. Thank you. But Lorraine did give it a rider. She did say to me just a couple of days ago that, Marty, you'll go to Cornwall Park, which is where Dad's ashes are, and you'll sit there and you'll see a young boy batting, and you'll fall in love with it again, and that may be the start where you can step out and maybe help a youngster, which is really all I've ever wanted to do since I've retired, is help a young player fulfill his dreams. And I've been lucky and privileged to help Ross in that regard. But even we are really finished in terms of what I can do to help him. He's 29 anyway, and he's on his way. Yeah.
I'm not scratching your back here because you've come into the studio this morning, but I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when I say you are one of the best cricket commentators around on television. In any company, in any broadcast, you bring something special. And you and Ian Smith, a fantastic team. And it seems a great pity that we're never going to hear your analysis, as you put it, again on cricket. You don't think in 5 years maybe you might think, wow, I wouldn't mind getting back there now that I'm over this and my life is back together again, I'm back in normality, I want to get back into cricket. Do you discount that possibility?
I guess I don't, but would I have to be on radio, Brendan, because I can't see me ever being employed by Sky again.
Yeah, we'll get to that shortly. Yeah.
And I got sacked as the executive producer of cricket because I made a comment
on Radio Sport, wasn't it?
It was with my great friend Doug Golightly, and it was the truth. And in fact, what I said turned out to be right a few days later. But that's the thing, is that I've sort of done a lot of commentary, and I just want to communicate now a new story and a new set of lessons that I've learned and experienced. And I guess that's in the wider field of health and healing and well-being and wellness. That's where I want to now spend my time, not talking about techniques and batting stances and grips, and I'm kind of bored with it all. I think I'm done there, but certainly,
But you've got a talent. I mean, in this life, if you have a talent, aren't you supposed to make the most of it? And whether you like it or not, cricket is your talent.
It was, and as I said, I want to move on to. I've got to find a new volition in my life, and I want to. I've got to get a job soon, and I want to be able to try in the field of health and wellness, and so that's where I'm heading.
Can we go back to those early days, from about the age that you were 14 through until you were around about 20, by which stage you were in the New Zealand team. You played in a number of underage rep teams, often with kids a lot older than you and with adults a lot older than you, and you make it into the New Zealand team when you're 19. And mentally and psychologically, as you state in the book, you couldn't cope, overwhelmed with fear and ongoing sense of failure. And then you ran into problems with people like Jeff Howarth, the captain, and living probably a life that very few teenagers experienced. Do you feel that missing out on your normal teenage development has had a lasting effect on your life?
Absolutely, yeah, I really do. I think Perhaps there are two things to focus on there, and that is that at the age of 14 or 15, it was in the middle of 77, I'm a 10th, year 10, fourth former at grammar, and I'm picked in the under-23 team. And I go to Dunedin, and I have a very humiliating experience. In isolation, no biggie, but it was an experience. And that's in detail in the book. And then I get picked for the under-20s, and then the New Zealand secondary schools team, and then Young New Zealand at the age of 17. Now, and not one of those teams did I score 50 until I got to the New Zealand secondary schools team in my last year at school. I failed every time,
and kept getting picked.
And the selectors kept saying, it'll be good experience for the wee lad, for the young lad.
And they stuck with you.
Now, I have a theory that they should have been picking my brother, but he had buggered off to Adelaide, disillusioned with the way he didn't get opportunities here in Auckland, couldn't even hardly make the Cornwall rep side or the club side. And so they decided on the next one in the family. And it was extraordinary, really, that I was in these teams at the age of 15. And, of course, all I did was feed the fear that I had, and am I good enough, from trying to compete with Jeff in the backyard, which was, again, in isolation, a natural course of events where I'm trying to live up to my brother's expectations. I'm trying to get the attention and love of my brother. It then went into these teams, and then when I got to the New Zealand cricket team and Jeff Howarth, I just collapsed completely.
So what was your issue with Howarth? Why did you dislike him so intensely?
Well, now that I know what Jeff was going through in his own life, I have totally forgiven everything. I mean, it's if I met him today, I would embrace him as a good person and as a fine cricketer. He was a really good captain. What happened was just a series of events where in my second one-day international, I didn't bat in the first one, but in my second one in Dunedin, I'm down to bat at 6 or 7, and then basically within minutes of the umpires going out, I'm told to bat at 3 because John Reid, I think, had a back injury. And it was done in a really callous way, and I failed, and then I was told to bat at 3 in the next game, and I was in second ball. John Wright got out to Tomo first ball, and I failed. And then in the test series, I got 9, 2, 0, 9. So at no stage did Jeff ever really sit me down and encourage me. He just basically yelled at me from across the dressing room, if you're a show pony and if you're good enough, you're old enough, kind of thing. And so it was just Jeff. It was just Jeff dealing with his stuff, and I shouldn't have taken it to heart, Brendan, but I did, and that manifested a problem.
Just getting to the cricket there, so you're dealing with all of this kind of emotional upheaval off the field and issues with these men a lot older than you. Then when you finally get out to the wicket as a 19-year-old playing for New Zealand, you're facing Lillian Thompson, and you admit in your book you had no idea what to do, right?
Look, I'd never worn a helmet, so that was the first thing, to wear a helmet. I didn't like the chin strap, so when Tomo was hitting me in the back of the head, the helmet was flying off at the Basin Reserve.
Were you scared?
Yeah, I was scared with Jeff Thompson and Dennis Lilly. Of course I was scared. It was just a shock. I was in panic. I ran myself out, or maybe Jeff didn't want to move. Jeff Howarth didn't want to move from the other end. So I was just, it was a total blur that I was in. And then, thankfully a year later, my brother came home, or months later came home, and he took my place. And so I went back to Auckland, and I just enjoyed batting again. And then within 6 months, I was back in the New Zealand side. This went on for 2 years, where I really failed. And in the end, I went to sports psychology, and I studied it to try and deal with how do I get out of this hole.
Did it work?
Yes, I learned visualization. I learned how to concentrate on a ball-by-ball basis. I learned about affirmations, and I learned how to remove negatives. And I spent my waking hours, and probably a lot of my subconscious hours, living and breathing, how do I cope with the next ball and against all these bowlers? And when teammates saw me bugger off to my room at 8 o'clock after a meal, and they didn't, I disconnected with them because I just was in so much fear of failing and of humiliation again that I just had to spend time sorting my head out. It was doing me in. And then I got into a period where I was coping well, and I got the confidence and the belief.
But then you had an issue again, didn't you, in the New Zealand team with a guy called John Bracewell?
Yes.
And do you think the difficulties you had with your relationship with Bracewell, who you accuse in the book of bullying tactics towards you, did that affect your relationship some years later when you were the producer of Sky's cricket and Bracewell was the coach of the Black Caps? Did it affect your relationship, professional relationship?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it was stupid of me to react as I did as a player. No one else had the problem. You know, Braces was Braces. He was determined and competitive and fiery, and he took it out on some of his teammates. But it wasn't wrong. It was just different. And I took it personally. And this was, again, me just struggling with the emotions of it, not grown up at all, not mature. When I got to become executive producer, I really tried to bury it, and I emailed him and I said, I'm so delighted you're the coach, and can I help with any of the batters? And I really opened up to him and I said I'd like to. And gradually, as I saw the team unravel and one or two players, one by one, Astle and Lou Vincent, come to me and just say, I cannot play under this man, did I start to then conjure up all of the old silly stuff. And in the end, he blacklisted me from talking to anyone, and it was sad.
But didn't you blacklist him as well? Wasn't there a story?
I
I don't know whether you came up in the book, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall that in your role as the executive producer of cricket, the word went out, hey guys, we're not speaking to Bracewell.
Yes, it's in the book, and I said it to a journo, and it was a kind of a bullish comment. It was a stupid comment. And he put it, as a good journo, he put it in print. And I went, and I never lived out the threat that I would not interview him. We continued to interview John Bracewell, but it was a stupid fascist comment that I regretted, and it just showed how I was thinking again and how it would easily come up from deep within. And sadly, we never saw eye to eye. And in the end, I lost my job at Sky because I made a comment about Bracewell on the radio.